It came back. No pony thought it ever would, but it did. In some cruel twist of fate, the Apple family massacre returned after 20 years of absence. That nightmare night was chaos, and every pony had gone from friends to foes in seconds at the sound of that alarm and Flair's abandonment. She couldn't protect them, and now it was up to them to protect themselves from a horror that should be impossible to even exist. Just like 20 years before, one by one, a victim would be taken to be tortured until that crazy monster, Bittersweet Applejack, decided she'd had enough fun playing with her prey. Something that Xena nor I had any interest in staying around for, and would have eventually fallen prey to had we stayed. No pony could be trusted in Ponyville, now that they had a reason to send you to the slaughterhouse like a pig grown enough to qualify for slaughter. Therefore, we left. We abandoned Ponyville, unsure of where we were going next, but it was for the better. Staying would have been suicide, and we knew it. It felt wrong, but we were the only ponies left that knew of Flora's current missing status, and if we died, no pony would be able to stop the massacre again. Not even Crimson, the only other pony we took with us that dreadful night. He had the other Sacrimonious that would kill the apples, and if they got a hold of it, it would all be over. I had driven Crimson and Xena far away to a small town that would hopefully be safe enough outside of the apple's reach, and took residence in a motel where we thought we could find a way to save Ponyville and Flora that night. However, with Xena having no connection to Flora anymore, and there being no way to pinpoint her location, we ultimately decided we had no choice but to do something we didn't want to. We had to wait. Wait for Xena to find a way to reconnect Flora's psyche. Wait for all of us to come up with a new plan. Wait for some impossibility that would likely never come. It's been 2 years since that night, and at this point, it feels like there's no way to save any pony. We don't know where Flora is, the farmhouse is likely a labyrinth, and without a solid and foolproof plan, going onto that land is a death wish. It all just feels hopeless. Exactly what that family intended, and we were just foolish pawns easily overtaken. I'm sorry, Flora. I only took you out of one hell to lead you to a worse one. I can only imagine what you must be going through, if you're even still alive. I want to save you. I want to so badly, but I can't. I, Sassy, who should have been your light to guide you, led you deeper into darkness. I'm so sorry.
Bloody red light was all Flora saw, pinned and bound to the grounds of the basement where the apples had slit their throats in retaliation towards justice. She can't move, think, or even do anything to escape the pain of the Sacrimonious above her very slowly ripping her soul to nothing but dust. It's literally hell, and every second feels like her organs are being shredded apart by a saw blade. The pressure of the concentrated pure evil energy having fractured every single bone in her body upon being restrained. She can feel her memories and life force depleting at a deathly slow pace, a pace that would likely take hundreds of years to reach the end, and that pained her more than anything. This all started as her just wanting to have a fun night, only to turn into an endless nightmare that would siphon her to nothing but a soulless corpse, wandering eternally in limbo. She couldn't move or fight back, and was now just another pig to the slaughter. Would she go blind from the light above her? Would she lose all of her memories and become a lifeless husk like the many Sassy had to care for in the Canterlot Hill ward? Would she ever die? There was no telling what properties this place had, and it terrified her that immortality might be a possibility. She'd basically become the Apple's rag doll for eternity to use and abuse however they wished. No escape to ever be in sight, nor a solitude after death.
How did this happen? Why was I forsaken to this?
She thought to herself, her only company being her only thoughts. No answer came, only the same pain of the Sacrimonious tearing her soul to shreds very, very slowly.
Some pony. Any pony. Please. Help me.
But no pony heard her except herself, and she knew it. This was her life now. Eternal pain, suffering, and slowly falling into absolute insanity. She can't sleep, go to a happy place, or even turn her head to see something other than the piercing red light of the Sacrimonious. She couldn't even cry. Her tears already dried up and soaked into the ground beneath her. Should she fight back against the force trying to take over her mind, or give in? Should she continue to believe in hope that something would happen like with Crimson? Flora had held on to hope only to receive nothing in return. So what are the chances she'd be saved like Crimson was?
No, Flora. That's what the apples want. Crimson probably thought the same thing, and he saved himself. You need to hold on.
Was that her insanity talking, or was she actually in her right mind? There was no telling, but what mattered is that she managed to stop herself from breaking. In her mind, it felt pointless to hold on, but deep down, she knew that eventually the apples would be challenged. By who? She didn't know, but what she did know was that the bad guys never win. That may have been just wishful thinking, but it was all she had, so she held on to it with whatever mental strength she could.
The bad guys never win, Flora. They always lose and will be defeated. Just hold on to that light in your heart. And believe in those who care for you. Sassy and Xena haven't abandoned you. It's just taking them time to find a way to get you out. They'll come. They will. Just stay strong like you have been since this all began.
While broken and in immense pain, Flora still held on. 3 years. 3 years of physical and mental torture. That's how long Flora had been holding on with little leeway. Was it pure stupidity or sheer resilience in hopes of achieving her goal of destroying the apples? Whatever it was impressive for a now 19-year-old mare, especially after going through mind-breaking trauma in her early life. Most would succumb to their trauma after so long, but Flora knew she couldn't give in. She had a promise to fulfill, a family to kill, a massacre to end for eternity. But Applejack was ruthless and also willing to do whatever it took to get what she desired. So who would break first? Only time would tell. Out of the unadulterated pain and struggle to keep herself sane, Flora heard hoofsteps approach. But these steps weren't Applejack's nor Big Macintosh's. They were far too light and gentle. Unable to turn her head to look, Flora could only await whatever had joined her to approach. The light steps stopped inches from her. following with a voice that she had never heard before. A younger one.
Don't say anything. I'm not gonna hurt ya.
It carried the same country twang as Applejack and her brother, but was much higher and definitely belonged to a younger filly. It carried no malice or evil intent, unlike her captors. So Flora listened and kept her mouth shut. Not that she could have spoken anyway.
I know who you are and why you're here, so I'm gonna help ya. However, Applejack can't know I'm here, so I just need you to pretend I'm not even here.
Flora did a move as a confirmation, feeling a very light touch to her head. She wasn't sure what was happening, but she trusted this mystery pony's words. Had a sign of hope finally come to her after 2 years? And would she finally be freed of her hell?
Listen to me. There's not much time. I know you're who sent Flora back, and I'm creating a link for you to follow. She's alive, but on the edge of losing her sanity. If you wish to save her, you must come here immediately and free her. Follow my link to her, but hurry.
The mystery filly pulled her hoof back, Flora still wondering what the hell she'd just done.
I've given your friends what they need to find you. Now all I need you to do, Flora, is hold on. My sister will try her hardest to break you, but please do your hardest to fight her tactics.
Flora's eyes bulged at the mention of the word sister. Sister? That could only mean that this filly is... A hoof suddenly touched Flora's right one, causing her to wince, the gentle nature of it relieving her of the horrors plaguing her for just a slight second, almost as if an angel had found and touched her.
I believe in you, and I'm so sorry it's taken me this long and that you'll have had to go through this. Just know I'm a friend, and I'm gonna do whatever I can to help you end this nightmare. I need to go now, but I'll be close by, I promise.
The light steps met her ears again, disappearing in seconds and leaving Flora with a new feeling of hope in her fractured heart and soul. She knew Xena could pinpoint her location now, and that's who her angel had talked to. Meaning, there was a chance of escaping, but a slim one. Soon, Resilience would meet Bittersweet Apple Acres, and all Flora had to do was just stay alive and sane. Not an easy task, given that, just like her helper had stated, Applejack would try to break her relentlessly. She smiled and thought one thing before returning to resisting the corruption of the Sacrimonious.
Thank you, Apple Bloom.
5 minutes earlier. Xena sat in her recliner in heavy focus and thought, having not stopped trying to connect to Flora since that nightmare night 2 years prior. Mentally and physically, she was exhausted, but refused to give up on a mare as young as Flora. But her energy and hope was running thin at the circumstances. Flora was in a realm led by ruthless, demonic serial killers, and likely had full control over every inch of it, with the ability to twist and morph it however they wanted. In reality, she probably was caught and killed within 3 days, but Xena just didn't want to accept it. Her heart carried guilt and regret, and that was the exact reason why she hasn't given up, wanting to make up for her mistakes just like Flora. She'd stayed with Sassy for a week after the return of the Apple family massacre, but eventually accepted they needed to go their separate ways, promising to return if she made a reconnection. Xena hasn't spoken to Sassy since, too wrapped in guilt and anger to look her in the eyes straight and tell her she's made no progress. It was an unfortunate reality she'd accepted after 6 months, and now just sits in the dark trying the impossible. She opened her eyes and angrily grunted at yet another failed attempt, getting up and doing her second task of her everyday life. She grabbed her usual wine from the pantry, poured herself a glass, then gulped it down in disgust. She hated the taste, but it got her drunk enough to escape her failure to save Flora, and that was enough for her to have the ability to choke it down.
Fuck me!
She stated out of disgust for the taste permeating her entire oral cavity, and the burn extended from her throat to her stomach.
What the hell are you doing, Zaina?
The question she asked herself every day, but never had an answer for. Putting the wine bottle back in the pantry and walking back to her recliner. By the time she makes it back, the effects of the alcohol are already evident, but she's so used to it by now that it doesn't even faze her as she closes her eyes again. Not to try again, but to rest off the alcohol, given she absolutely hated the feeling of drunkenness. However, once she closed her eyes, she was immediately jolted awake upon feeling an intrusion into her mind. She gasps as she listens to whoever had contacted her, having an idea of who it was.
Listen to me. There's not much time. I know you're who sent Flora back, and I'm creating a link for you to follow. She's alive, but on the edge of losing her sanity. If you wish to save her, you must come here immediately and free her. Follow my link to her, but hurry.
The voice ceased, but in its absence had left behind something she originally deemed impossible. The connection to Flora that originally had been severed was now whole again, and she could feel Flora's soul being shredded to bits by the Sacrimonious's evil energy. The feeling immediately made her grasp her chest as if she were having a heart attack, the sensation being so horrible that it had nearly made her vomit.
So strong. Ah! Heavens above. I've never felt something this... so malevolent.
The pain attacking her was terrifying, and she knew it wasn't an effect of drunkenness. The sensation purging her was real, and whoever had reconnected her to Flora had spoken the truth.
Focus, Zena. You need to get your senses under control.
Using every bit of her mental strength, she fought past the pain and balanced the connection in the chaotic frenzy of frequencies. It was hard to do, but as soon as she conquered the agony, the link went from an unstable mess to a line where she could clearly see Flora. Upon seeing Flora's state, Xena knew just how dire the situation had become, knowing that the Sacrimonious's effects were drastic, and being constantly attacked by it. That's fatal.
Flora, can you hear me? It's Zena.
No answer.
Flora!
Nothing.
Damn it, this link is just meant as a beacon, not for communication. She won't last much longer, given I can barely sense her soul's presence. In other words, she's slowly becoming a lifeless puppet for those monsters to use to remain in reality.
She quickly rushed to her house phone and dialed a very familiar number to her memory, awaiting the pony to surely answer on the other end.
Hello?
The pony, Sassy, answered on the other end. Xena knew she had to be quick and straightforward, so she made her words and purpose for calling clear.
Sassy, it's me.
Xena, where the hell have you been the last 2 years?
I know, I have a lot to answer for, but I need you to shut up and listen. Flora's alive, but in dire need of help, and there's not much time left for her before she loses her sanity.
Sassy was silent, now aware the situation was serious and that she needed to put her frustrations aside.
Good. Then you know what's important right now.
Yes, what do I need to do?
Nothing. I'll come see you. I'll leave in the morning given I'm not in the right mind to drive right now.
What do you mean by that? You know what? Never mind. It's not important. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Sassy. See you soon.
The phone call ended, leading Xena to start preparing for the challenge ahead. Flora was alive, and that's all that mattered to her. However, she wouldn't be alive much longer, and that meant time was of the essence. Tomorrow, she'd amend her sins by returning to Bittersweet Apple Acres for hopefully the last time. This time, to end the Apple family massacre for eternity and beyond. Three knocks met Sassy's ears as she flicked an ash trail into her usual ashtray, her fourth cigarette of the day resting between her lips. The time was 12:23 p.m., and the fact she was already this heavy into her pack she'd bought last night made her sick. But after the call with Xena, she'd become a sporadic mess of anxiety. The call had left her with a mix of relief, worry, grief, and anger. And that was a cocktail she found suitable to have a smoke or two. She tried to quit so many times, but at this point, she had concluded it was never going to happen. At least, not in the current state of her life. The Apple family massacre had returned, and as much as she wanted to just lie to herself that it hadn't, she couldn't. Ponies were being tortured and killed, while she purged her lungs with her nasty habit, and she knew there was no way to stop it as a mortal. The orchestrators of that horror show are demonic, otherworldly monsters that could perform impossible things beyond any pony like her, and she knew that because of what Flora had told her about Trevor's demise. Applejack had used her tendons and ligaments like sharp piano strings to shred that poor stallion's body to bits. And that had been a tale that had made her shiver in absolute fear. If that was one thing these fucks were capable of, what else could they do? She honestly didn't even want to know as she smothered out her cigarette and walked to her front door, opening it to the sight of Xena. The two didn't say anything to one another, the air so tense that it was suffocating, but it was understandable on Sassy's end. No word for 2 years, and she suddenly calls in the dead of night out of nowhere? Sassy had every right to be upset, reluctantly stepping away to allow Xena in. The witch doctor could feel the daggers being shot at her from Sassy's eyes as she stepped into the small apartment, messy and foul with the smell of cigarette smoke. A visible cloud from said thing could be seen hovering over the usual place in the kitchen where Sassy sat. Nothing but the ashtray and lighter being atop the main table. Xena could tell that her company had let herself go, and it was understandable why. No contact after so long probably made Sassy feel abandoned, and just like Xena, harbored a heavy load of guilt for what happened to Flora. The witch doctor couldn't find any words to say as she sat down her bag of several requirements needed to get Flora out of Sweet Apple Hell immediately. The silence was deafening, finally being seized upon Sassy moving back to her usual seat and planting herself in it. She was tempted to light up a fifth, but decided against it, knowing she'd likely be needing to run very shortly. She just continued to stare at her company like a predator on the prowl, refusing to say anything at first because she was the victim. Xena caught that and finally said something to escape the tension of the atmosphere.
Look, Sassy,
Let me stop you right there. 2 years. No response. Then you just call me out of fucking nowhere? What the hell happened to, I'll keep in touch. After all, we need each other right now.
Xena couldn't speak, knowing Sassy had every right to chastise her like a mother disciplining their child.
I called you countless times, praying that you were still alive. No fucking answer. You should be lucky that I even let you come here. By all rights, I should have hung up on your ass the moment I knew it was you. But I only held off due to this involving Flora. That's the only reason you got through that door. I'm doing this solely for Flora. And no other reason. So get your fucking ass on it. Your apology is not accepted.
Xena had no retort. She'd dug her own grave, and now she'd have to lay in it. Therefore, she did exactly what Sassy told her and started preparing everything, not saying another word the entire time. The ritual was set up in no more than a half hour, the prepper knowing she couldn't waste time as she lit the candles positioned at each end of the ceremony circle. The process would be very similar to how Flora's was performed, except for, due to the target place being within reality, they'd be able to enter through a portal in their physical forms. Just like before, it would be do or die, and given they were dealing with absolute evil energy, it was likely some pony would come back with unhealable damage. However, there was still one issue. There was no plan.
What's even the plan when we're through?
Sassy questioned, struggling not to bite her tongue, and the only thing stopping her being Flora.
Very similar to 2 years ago. We go through and get Flora out of harm's way. After that, we have to somehow get that crazed mare's soul connected to the scrungy island Flora. How? That's the bigger question.
You are aware Flora no longer has the blade, right? It was probably confiscated when she was captured or whatever happened that night.
Xena shook her head.
While that may seem the case, the scrungy is still on Flora's person. I felt his energy when I reconnected with her soul. So apparently they didn't notice.
Sassy's eyes widened in shock, finding it hard to believe that killers like the apples wouldn't notice something so critical.
You're absolutely sure? And that you didn't mistake it for the one destroying her?
Yes. The scrungy is not as concentrated as the one siphoning her. And I could sense 2 different energy sources. I don't know how, but Flora managed to keep it from them, even up to now.
Sassy cocked a smile in bewilderment at Flora's continued ability to be unpredictable.
That mare still continues to surprise me. She's a true warrior.
Xena didn't follow, knowing she was still in hot, boiling water with Sassy and likely couldn't ever get out of it. Therefore, she just moved on to the last step of the ritual instead, opening a book and finding the correct set of words to open the portal. It was time.
The ritual is ready, Sassy. I'm opening the portal now, so please come into the circle. Otherwise, you won't be able to go through.
Sassy didn't show any gesture of agreement, but she did get up from her chair. However, before she joined Xena, she grabbed one more cigarette and rested it between her lips.
Fuck it. If I'm gonna die, I want to at least go out happily.
She lit the end and took in a long drag, letting it last longer than usual as a way to give herself some sense of relief. If this was her final hour, she wanted this smoke to last, for it to tickle every nerve it could, for her last taste of the vapors to be the best it possibly could, and for her final moment in a safe place to feel peaceful before entering hell. Xena allowed her this serenity, knowing what lied ahead of them. Once they entered the portal, the only way back was to destroy and escape the farmhouse, and that was the only possibility. A feat that would likely end in death, but Flora's life was all that mattered to them. If they died, they didn't care. One way or another, this would be the day the Apple Family Massacre would be sealed away in history for eternity. Or they die trying. Sassy took the last drag of her cigarette, blew out the fumes, and smothered it out with a toss and smother using her hoof. Her temporary serenity was gone, and now it was time to enter the inferno.
Let's do this.
She said, walking into the ritual circle and awaiting Xena to open the portal to Sweet Apple Hell. Once Sassy was safely in the circle, Xena started to speak the phrasing that would complete the ceremony. The words sounding like absolute gibberish to Sassy's ears, but upon seeing the candlelight outside the round space begin to flicker, she knew whatever was happening was working. The flames adorning the candles blinked on and off like a light switch, starting slow at first, then progressing to a rapid pace of a strobe light, up until it mimicked the lighting of an older 9mm camera. Then, a sudden mass of black space engulfed them, along with a heaviness, up until, in an instant flash of light, they were met with the sight of red light. It took a moment for their eyes to adjust, but once their sights unfogged from the effects of the transportation, what they saw nearly made them fall to tears. In the middle of the room, beneath a blinding array of red light, was Flora Bloom, pinned and immobile. They couldn't speak upon seeing the young mare they hadn't seen since Nightmare Night 2 years ago, her skin pale, eyes foggy, and voice silent. It was like she was dead, but she wasn't, because Xena still had a connection to her soul. However, the fact she was alive was worse. The Sacrimonious destroying every bit of her life force very, very slowly. A fate worse than death. And now that Sassy and Xena had seen it for themselves, they knew that getting Flora free and escaping would prove to be far harder than they could have ever imagined. The next plan of action was unclear as the two stood in horror at the display of just how truly evil the apples were. However, they knew they had to approach sooner or later, so they took easy steps toward the practical pentagram, immediately feeling the effects of the Sacrimonious upon getting within a hoof's length from it. Upon seeing their faces, Flora thought she was hallucinating. But upon hearing Sassy's voice, she knew they were real.
Flora, can you hear me?
Sassy spoke lowly to avoid drawing in any unwanted guests. Flora only responded with a weak and rattled gasp, following with tears escaping her eyes. The sight broke Sassy's heart, wanting to just pull Flora into her hooves and take her home, shedding tears of her own.
Shh, it's okay now. We're going to get you out of here, I promise.
Sassy assured, wiping Flora's tears from her eyes. While Flora didn't have the energy to move, she believed her, despite the clear danger. Sassy smiled as a way of assuring her patient, starting to analyze the best way to get Flora free. The first thing she eyed was the restraints held closed by only 2 screws, and that was the first thing she saw as the first step to getting Flora free. She turned back to Xena.
Need to get these off first. Any idea how?
Xena joined Sassy, looking down at the steel restraint holding Flora's right hoof in place. She hadn't brought a screwdriver, nor even had thought to, so she started to look around the room for anything sturdy, thin, and small. Not even a single pebble occupied the space, thinning their options and turning the situation from hopeful to hopeless. Then, a sudden sound broke the space, a mild clink of metal and something rolling across the ground. Upon seeing what it was almost unbelievable. A screwdriver was on the ground not far from the staircase that led back upstairs. However, that wasn't the only thing that occupied the area now. A young filly adorned with a big red bow atop her head, standing with a smile on her face.
Y'all all need a helping hoof?
There's no feeling worse than losing a loved one. And the day I saw the reality of mother and aunt's absence unfold, I became something. What do I mean by that? Well, in an easy way of speaking, I became some pony I wasn't. A creature with no clear sense of thought and direction, sealing my true self away in isolation behind an impenetrable brick wall. That version of me was silenced, her voice forever contained behind the wall, never to be heard again. The voice of the mare once known as Blazing Flare, daughter of Princess Celestia, and heir to the throne. You've only known Princess Flare up to now, but this is her real self talking, the voice hidden behind the mad matriarch's isolated mindset. Before the horrors of the Apple Family massacre, I was just like any other young mare, free, happy, and careless. I spent my days going about the courtyards of Canterlot Castle, associating and learning new things from every pony I knew. My mother wasn't the type to force me into anything I didn't want, especially royalty, and preferred me to just live my life as if I were a normal child. Of course, she was ridiculed for it by the snobs of society, but she didn't care, already having the highest seat above the entirety of Equestria. So she usually just laughed it off as snobs being snobs. Even Auntie Luna turned her flank to their opinions of my mother's decisions regarding me, always seeing it the same way. That was the point of my life where things were as they should be for any young mare. But then, things changed when the letter regarding the mission happened. The day I had to take responsibility as the heir, but only for what should have been 3 days. I only needed to do small things and save the bigger fish for when Mother and Aunt Luna returned. So I accepted and watched as they teleported away for the last time. 3 days passed, and Mother and Auntie were absent. I was worried until a letter in my mother's hoof writing was sent stating they'd be gone longer. Weeks passed, paperwork was piling up, and delegates were getting impatient. I knew a little about Mother's work and knew I couldn't let it keep piling up, so I worked on some of it, enough to at least make it easier on Mom when she returns. Weeks became months, and now I knew something wasn't right. So I sent out a search party in hopes of finding out what the hell was going on. Then came the next thing that built on my growth into who I've become outside these walls. Mother and Auntie were never found, and the orchestrators of the original mission, the main 6, were also missing. To figure things out more clearly, I retrieved the letter regarding the mission details and looked to see where it was set at, finding Appaloosa as the place of origin. I sent a search team and officials there to get as much info as possible about the series of events that led to their disappearances. Rayburn, a known local, stated he'd seen the pair together last on day 2, heading for the mines. But after that, there were no further signs of them. Immediately, the officials questioned which mine specifically, and Rayburn had stated they had mentioned the gold dust mine while having lunch. The investigators quickly headed for Gold Dust Mine, and after getting a guide to lead them, had checked every single inch of the tunnels. After hours of looking, they were met with a horrible discovery. A collapsed area with a long white Pegasus wing exposed. An alicorn wing. The horrid truth of the disappearances had been solved. A mineshaft collapse being the culprit. I got the news I'd been devastated and was now the new princess of Equestria. But little did I know, the real truth was more horrifying than I could have ever imagined. A mine collapse wasn't the reason my mother, aunt, and the main six had disappeared, and the truth was revealed in a horrible way on the day I received the truth about the apples and what was happening in Ponyville, right under my muzzle. There had been no mission. My mother, aunt, and 5 of the main 6 had been tricked. They had arrived in Appaloosa as planned, but the mission wouldn't start until day 2. So Brayburn, who had been part of the 6 scheme, had served them a feast for dinner, laced with a strong but subtle drug that would put them into a very deep sleep. After that, well, it's unclear as we never got the actual truth. But the hypothesis of what occurred can't be far off. The first thing assumed to have occurred is that all of their horns and wings were removed. Then they were transported to Sweet Apple Acres overnight. Whatever occurred in the slaughterhouse is a nightmare cocktail of horrors that I don't even want to imagine or speak. Only know involved disgusting and cruel acts that likely lasted over a month. However, somehow that's not even the worst part, given how they were found. I can only hope they were killed and not alive when they were skinned. Yes, skinned. The apples didn't have the grinder yet, and as a sick perverted way of rewarding themselves, they turned my aunt, mother, and the main 5 into full-body mounts, portrayed as how they looked before they fucking died. What kind of sick fuck do you have to be to perform such a disgusting, immoral, and demented act on your own kind? An act that broke my mind upon seeing my loved ones and trusted comrades being carried out on stretchers. The thing that killed Princess Blazing Flare that day and threw her entire life into chaos. That day, I became no better than the apples. I took other ponies' lives out of nothing but selfishness and grief and locked myself behind a brick wall. The same thing as those fucks who ruined me and turned me into a monster. The monster known as Princess Flare. My hooves and throat bleed from trying to break down this damn wall, and all I feel is pain. Some pony, please break me out. Princess Flare is not who I am. I'm so sorry, Mother and Auntie. I tried to be a good princess, but failed. All I want is freedom. All I want is to make things right. Help me, please. Help me.
Princess Flare sat on her throne, her expression bleak, her mind full of screams from her subjects, and guilt plaguing her heart with a relentless pressure. She had run away that dreadful nightmare night 2 years ago, her subjects having turned against her, and greatest fear having manifested before her eyes in the distance. The Sweet Apple Acres farmhouse. Something she'd had demolished decades ago had risen from the grave along with its crazy owners. A series of happenings that should have never been possible to ever occur. The Apple family massacre. The thing that had taken away everything she cared about had returned, and instead of fighting to stop it, she had chosen to run. Run like a coward. Run like a scared filly. Run like a selfish and arrogant monster, leaving her subjects to die. It was a fact she hated to accept as truth, but the fact she'd locked herself away in the castle since that night and had done nothing to try and stop her subjects in Ponyville was evident enough to make her see it. She wasn't a fool, blind to what she had done over the past 20 years, and was fully aware of her crimes, lies, and heinous acts on ponykind. From the silencing of any pony who had any knowledge of the massacre, to corrupting the justice system to her preference, she was completely conscious of it all, and regretted all of it. The only reason she did those things was to avoid any recollection of the day she saw the horrors of the apples before her very eyes. But that nightmare night had brought it all back, vividly. Now, she sits on her throne day in and out, hearing the screams from her subjects for help repeat like a broken record over and over as a chaotic cacophony of hell. She has yelled and tried countless times to tell these protests to go away, but she can see that this is punishment for her own choices. Choices she wishes she had never made, but did them out of fear and desperation. And now she must pay the price of her crimes. Tears flood from her eyes as she just listens to the endless barrage of voices attacking her, knowing she deserved everything they were saying. Why did you leave us to die, Princess? You're supposed to be our protector, not our executioner. Please, save us, Princess. It hurts so much. I don't want to die. Why have we been abandoned? Please, any pony, save us.
Shut up. Shut up. Go away. Go away.
She made one of her main guards jump at this sudden plea to escape the madness engulfing her mind, to which they immediately addressed their matriarch. Your Highness, are you all right? Flare jumped, having not realized she'd actually said her last yelp out loud. She worked quickly to compose herself and wipe the sweat from her forehead.
I'm fine. Just a nightmare.
The guard could tell she was obviously lying, given this hadn't been the first case of her yelling out exclamations as such. The first time wasn't long after she'd fled Ponyville. It became a very prominent issue daily that only got worse. Even the high names had started to notice and even made rumors that she was secretly schizophrenic. But Flare could care less about gossip, so she never cared to address it. Therefore, every pony just plays dumb to her sudden outbursts, playing them off as just the princess being the princess, when they knew that there was most certainly something more going on. The guard just nodded and reestablished his post, keeping his expression stoic when behind the mask he was terrified. He knew of the truth happening in Ponyville, and the only thought he could muster was, what happens when the apples run out of ponies to slaughter in Ponyville? A very horrifying thought that Flare hadn't even taken to mind, but it was only a matter of time. Slowly but surely, Ponyville was becoming a ghost town, and after that, the massacre would spread beyond. It'd be an endless cycle, up until the apples reached Canterlot and easily took it by storm. No pony was safe and at the moment, had no pony to protect them. Flora couldn't even protect herself, so how could she even try to save her subjects? Your Highness. A voice called from the far end of the room, the pony being her door guard. Flora turned her sights to the guard, her eyes tired and baggy as she met their gaze.
If it's another delegate, tell them I'm not interested in their ideas.
The guard shook their head. It isn't a delegate or official, Princess, but some pony who I really think you should let in. Flora raised an eyebrow.
Who thinks they are worthy enough to speak with me without any sort of notice or appointment? And who are you to determine who I speak with, guard?
I meant no disrespect, Your Majesty. Just believe it's best for your well-being and pony kind, that's all. Flora frowned, annoyed that some pony below her stature had taken the liberty to decide what's best for her.
Listen to me and listen well. You do not make such decisions. I do. Your job is to stand outside that door and report matters that matter. Nothing more. Therefore, tell that unexpected guest to leave. And if they wish to speak with me, make an appointment. Understood, guard.
The stallion gulped fearfully as he nodded as a response, knowing not to overstep his line of duty ever again.
Good. Now get back to work.
The guard followed with what he was told, turning and exiting with fearful steps. The throne room door shut, and Flora returned to her struggles, up until a sudden sound of a pained grunt erupted from outside the door, followed by a thump. The guards stationed at the throne were just about to go check. Then, the door opened again, entering a red-clad stallion walking forward with a cane holding him up. Crimson flash. "16 hours earlier. Crimson jumped at the sudden sound of his phone ringing, finding it unusual given the time being 9:45 p.m. He was tempted to just ignore the likely prank or scam call, but for some reason, he felt compelled to pick up the phone. He couldn't explain it, but he knew the pony on the other end was one he needed to talk to, so he listened to his instincts and answered the phone.
If this is some prankster or scam artist, you better run before I find—
Crimson!
His eyes bulged upon hearing the voice meet his ears, belonging to some pony he hadn't seen or heard from in 2 years.
Zena? Am I hearing things? Or is it really you?
It's really me. I'm sorry for calling so late, but something's happened.
No. It's good to hear your voice. But I must ask, what do you mean by something happened?
A soft sigh came through, assuring Crimson that whatever he was about to hear next would be something he could have never expected to.
To put it in an easy way to understand, Flora's alive, but not for much longer.
Upon hearing Flora's name, Crimson jumped, having assumed that her disappearance 2 years prior had meant assured death. To hear the words Flora and alive in the same sentence immediately had his attention, knowing that meant a rescue operation was in the works.
She's still living? How?
I don't know. But what's important is that she is. But as I said, she won't be much longer. Whatever the apples have done to her has nearly taken its toll on her mentality. And if she isn't saved soon, she's likely to become the equivalent of a zombie.
Flashes of his days in the farmhouse manifested sporadically, remembering how the acts of torture from Applejack had made him feel dead. It wasn't unlike the lead apple to do tactics that resulted in victims becoming husks with no sentience. Therefore, he could believe everything Xena was saying, and knew that time was of the essence.
I understand, but why have you called me? As much as I'd love to help, I just can't, Xena. I've lost my strength when I escaped 23 years ago. Nor am I in any shape to take on that demonic family.
I know, Crimson, and I don't expect you to face your greatest fear again, but I must confess something. Do you remember what I said when I visited you 2 years ago?
Of course. You told me to do two things. If I were to be visited by two mares, I would send them to the address you gave me, and after that, head to Ponyville to try to persuade the princess not to perform the Blood Moon event.
Correct. But I never told you why I wanted you to do those things.
Crimson raised a very thoughtful eyebrow, continuing to listen.
You see, had I told you why, you probably would have never done them in the first place. In simple speaking terms, some zebras have the ability to see the future, and I'm one of them. That day, before I visited you, I had a vision of the return of the Apple family, and had assumed it to be caused by the blood moon rising. However, I was wrong, and didn't even factor Flora in as a potential cause. And now is the reason why a second massacre ever came to be.
Crimson was baffled by the information being presented to him, but believed it. Xena had given him no reason not to believe her, everything having come true, minus her mistake in Flora causing the massacre's return.
I see. You're right. I probably would have slammed the door in your face. However, I highly doubt you just called me to tell me that that girl's alive, and the reason you came to me on that day 2 years ago.
Sharp as ever. You're right. I called because I had another vision just after I hung up with Sassy. A vision of the outcome of if Sassy and I were to go through with saving Flora on our own.
And what did you see?
There was a short pause before Xena answered, clear anxiety in her voice.
There, yeah. Flora becomes a zombie. Sassy and I are killed by Applejack. And the massacre is never stopped.
Crimson felt a shiver go down his spine, not even wanting to imagine what an eternal Apple family massacre would lead to.
I see. I'm assuming you have a plan to potentially alter that outcome.
Well, I don't expect you to fight alongside Sassy and I. You can help us by doing exactly what I told you to do that night 2 years ago.
Crimson was immediately confused, unsure what Xena wanted him to do.
I'm afraid I don't understand. What exactly do you want me to do?
Persuade the princess to help us. We need as many allies as possible if we are going to get Flora out and end the massacre.
And what makes you so sure I can persuade her? I don't know if you're aware, but she ran that night and has done nothing to help her subjects since. What are the chances I can get her to listen to reason?
Because you're both victims. While this may sound wrong, I truly don't believe Princess Flare is unwilling to listen. I saw the night when she attacked Flora, and behind her royal mask is a hurt and lost pony that wants to do the right thing. However, she's deep down, and only some pony who can relate to her can break down the walls she puts up around herself. Attack her where it hurts. Make her listen to you as a survivor who overcame that decade of horrors. And show her how she can make up for her mistakes.
Crimson winced at Xena's words, realizing that his matriarch, while ungrateful and evil, was very much like himself. The only difference between them was that one was unable to move on, and while he still carried scars and fears, Crimson had managed to escape the impact the apples had left on his psyche. If any pony could break down Flair's walls, it was him.
No guarantees, Xena. But I'll try. You and Sassy just take care of each other. The apples will try everything to stop you.
It'll be hard, given I have fucked up with Sassy. She's already given me an earful.
Give her time. I'm sure she'll come around. I don't know what you did to piss her off, but if there's anything I've learned in my years of healing, it's that in dark times, ponies don't think straight. She may be angry now, but whatever you did will fade over time.
Thank you, Crimson. Good luck.
Good luck to you as well. And say hi to that apple bitch for me.
The call ended, Crimson putting the phone back on the hook, then grabbing his cane to start getting ready for his unexpected trip to Canterlot.
Celestia, give me strength to hopefully talk some sense into your daughter.
Halt! One more step, and we won't hesitate to attack. Crimson didn't show any fear, merely scoffing at the threat.
Kindly shut up. Every pony knows you guards are not even trained to handle the smallest of threats. So unless you like to end up like your friend outside, I suggest you halt.
The two knights below Flair gasped, shocked that the stallion before them knew such a well-kept secret. They didn't dare move, but the commotion had caused Flair to glimpse at the intruder, her eyes immediately widening upon seeing who had entered her place of safety. She knew who he was, even if she'd never seen him with her own eyes.
Why are you here?
Crimson met the gaze of his matriarch.
Good. I have your attention. Let's not even kid ourselves, fair princess. You know exactly why I'm here, and judging by your reaction, you know who I am.
Flair didn't answer, only gritted her teeth, and that was enough to tell Crimson everything.
Perfect. Let's cut to the chase. I'm not here to beg or play pretend, so let's get that out of the way. I'll also add that by saying, I know who you really are, and what you've done. I know you've killed ponies, lied about the thing we both are damaged by, and have unjustly locked away ponies who knew of it. I also know that you're shocked at my presence, because you thought I was dead. It would seem that way, wouldn't it, seeing you saw my bandaged body in the bed? Truth is, I got out while I still could, thanks to my nurse who could read you as well as me. She got me out and cared for me in secret, while you pretended that nearly the entirety of Ponyville was killed off like pigs to the slaughter, and still tried to deny it.
Flair bared her teeth in anger and humiliation, just wanting this pony to go away like the voices in her head.
Leave! Leave or I'll make you leave!
Putting up those walls again, princess? Well, guess what? I'm here to break them down!
Flair jumped, having expected him to cower in fear at her royal command, but instead, he was unfazed and attacked back.
This time you stop living in a fantasy and wake the hell up! I'm going nowhere, and I'm going to give you the truth you refuse to accept.
He stepped closer, the guards not even making an attempt to stop him.
Why do you choose to ignore the ones you're supposed to protect? Why do you silence any who speak the truth? Why are you no better than the monsters who killed your loved ones?
A crack formed, and it stung Flair's heart with an unbearable pain, anger erupting to the surface.
Don't you dare speak such foul words. I am nothing like them.
Are you? You're deliberately ignoring your subjects, being picked off one by one, yelling and screaming for their princess to help them. You left them for dead. Sit here like a selfish coward, allowing the apples to continue killing. Tell me, princess, how are you not any different from the very family who took everything away from you?
Another crack. Flair gasped, knowing she couldn't respond to that. The stallion before her had made solid points, and they were all true. She wanted this pony to disappear from her sight. She couldn't intimidate or fight against him, and for the first time in her role as a ruler, felt unable to even respond. Therefore, she defaulted to her usual tactic, the threat of death.
Enough! If you don't leave now, I won't hesitate to silence you for good. Last chance.
This should have made any pony turn and run, but Crimson still remained unfazed, standing without any sort of fear.
Go ahead. Go ahead and kill me. I welcome death.
Flair couldn't believe it. Not even a death threat was enough, and he was encouraging it.
I've lived in fear and paranoia since I was 17, seeing shadows, taking multiple medications, having endless treatments and surgeries. And for what?
Crimson had gotten so angry that tears had started to leak from his eyes.
Look at me. I'm a fucking bionic, crippled and mentally unstable mess. I get weird looks. Haven't gotten a full night's sleep in over 20 years due to my several scars and implants causing me pain while sleeping, and constantly having to tell myself my hallucinations aren't real. I hate my life, and have wished for death to take me from this world hundreds upon thousands of times. Nothing you can say or do to me can scare me. So go ahead, princess. Go ahead. Kill me. Kill me just like the apples are doing to Ponyville residents right now.
Another crack in Flair's walls, growing larger and larger. Crimson had every base covered, and he was right. Nothing she did or said would hurt him, because he was already broken. How can you hurt a creature who has already lost themselves? The answer was that she couldn't. She had met her match.
Well, princess, what are you waiting for?
Crimson enticed, testing her fully. Flair wanted to do her usual answer to anything she didn't agree with, but for some reason, she was holding back. Crimson's last statement had left the biggest mark on her, and it had stung the worst. She couldn't deny that he was right, and knew that unless she broke her stubbornness, those voices in her head would eventually drive her to the point of insanity. After seeing the things she had sworn to remove from history come back that night, she had seen that no matter how hard she tried to ignore her fears, eventually they'd surface again. There was no way to escape, and rather than wait for either the apples to eventually reach her, she needed to accept the truth and do something before it was too late. Flair's walls shattered. allowing her old self, Blazing Flare, to finally break free and take hold again. Crimson could see that he had succeeded upon Flare hanging her head, and the heaviness of the room lightening to a much more somber atmosphere. The princess who had swore to deny everything had finally seen her faults and was crying from her acceptance that her mother and aunt, along with hundreds of other ponies, were dead due to her and the apple's doing. Something that hurt her to see and understand, but it was the absolute truth. Crimson just let her take in this harsh reality piece by piece, knowing that, while she had done wrong, this was the step needed for her to finally do the right thing. A long 5 minutes passed before Flare finally wiped her eyes and met Crimson's gaze again.
I won't bother apologizing, because I know my actions over the past 2 decades don't deserve one.
She said with dignity, her mask of a royal fully removed, and the true face of Princess Blazing Flare in full light. Crimson nodded.
You're right. What you've done is unacceptable to be forgiven. What matters now is what you do next.
The thing is that I'm not sure what to do. I'm powerless against whatever the apples have become. And I think that's something even you know.
Crimson could tell that this wasn't a response out of the mouth of Princess Flare, but the true thoughts of the daughter of Princess Celestia. This wasn't an excuse. It was the truth. And she was terrified.
True. You're right that all of us are powerless against demonic monsters. But what if I told you that you don't need to attack or even try killing them, Princess?
Huh?
Right now as we speak, there are ponies invading the farmhouse, but they can't make it out alive as they are. What we need is time.
So, what do you propose I do?
Well, as far as I go, I've done my part. Now it's time for you to do yours and make things right.
A sudden spark flickered in Flare's mind, opening her eyes to knowing exactly what she needed to do.
I'll make things right. For Mom, for Auntie, and for every pony who has died because of me.